Hello, this is Brian Foster on Kardec Radio, presenting the program Spiritism and the Spirit World Around Us.
Hello on this wonderful day, June 24th, 2018. We are here as we are every Sunday. We are live streaming on Kardec Radio Facebook page. So again, tell your friends, share us. Share Kardec Radio Facebook page. It's a lot of information on that. Simultaneously, we're also on Kardec Radio, which you can download that app on your Android or your iPhone. It's free. You can get Kardec Radio programs 24 hours a day. Very exciting tonight. We are talking about, again, guiding humans on Earth. And our subject tonight that we're starting with is sex and marriage. It's all part of the spirit world's plan. And there's extremely interesting aspects to this. But first, before we start, again, we are talking about Spiritism. Spiritism was brought to us in the 1850s by Allan Kardec. He posed questions that many mediums in different countries throughout Europe received answers for, and he did not use the answers until he had similar answers from multiple mediums, from high spirits. And the Spirit of Truth was the organizer of the different spirits that talked through mediums, that then wrote to, and then gave the messages to the mediums that Allan Kardec codified the Spirit's book. And again, this book you can find on my website. The link to the bookstore, nwspiritism.com. Click on his picture, and you will go to the EDICEI bookstore. You will go to that store, and you will see all of Allan Kardec's book, and then other Spiritist books by Chico Xavier, Yvonne Pereira, and others. Other great Spiritist mediums. Believe me, you will not be disappointed. It will be a wonderful experience. Spiritism just tells you so much of why we're here on Earth, what your purpose is, what the end goal is, how you can relook at your life and everyone else's life around you. Now, let's get to specifics. And of course, this is all part of my third book, How We Are Guided by Spirits, Book 3 of Spiritism, The Spirit World Revealed to an Anglican Vicar. And again, there's a link to this book on my site, nwspiritism.com. So now let's talk about sex, marriage. It's all part of the spirit world's plan. And in this, as I'm going through and I'm talking about this chapter, this has got a lot of information, not only from the Reverend G. Val Owen, but information from books by Chico Xavier, Psychograph by Chico Xavier in the Andre Luis series of books. And there's also a lot of information about sex and marriage in the books by Allan Kardec, codified by Allan Kardec, the Spirits book. So I kind of go through information presented to us from spirits all the way from the middle of the 19th century to now. So let's start with what we were told by the Reverend G. Val Owen. A group of spirits with the spirit Kathleen, who is one of the main connections between a group of spirits and Reverend G. Val Owen. Now, before I start on this, I'd like to tell you a lot of, when you hear mediums, they channel different spirits. It's like they channel one spirit. But what I've seen in presentations and communications, I should say, from high spirits, is usually in Spiritism, there's a group of spirits, and they use one spirit who has the closest connection to that medium, so they can get through their collective ideas. And in the Reverend G. Val Owen, he had many different high spirits come and talk to him, but one of the groups, they used the spirit Kathleen, who had passed away more recently and kind of understood English as Reverend G. Val Owen used it, and they kind of collect thoughts. They put it through Kathleen, who then could put it in the idiom that he could understand the best. Now, Chico Xavier, the same thing. When Andre Luis did his whole series of books, which are great. The first book is No Solar. I recommend everybody look up No Solar and read that. It wasn't just Andre Luis standing behind Chico Xavier. It was many spirits, and they were channeling that information to Chico Xavier so he could get the right words. And that's why it's important to know this is, and probably the same thing happened to a lot of the information that was sent to different mediums, and then Allan Kardec got that and then accumulated and presented that information. And it's important to know that because when you read these books that were actually created kind of like a committee of spirits, and they wanted to make sure that they used the right words, the right idiom to present to us what they were telling us. And that's why when you read these books, you have to kind of read them a couple times because every sentence is important. And sometimes you read it and then you read the second time and there's hidden gems like, okay, now I understand that now. And that's why, I wrote my series of books on from Reverend G. Vallon, because there's many things. It starts with, book 1, Heaven and Below, and then book 2, Spirits in the Spirit Universe. Of course, I showed you book 3 because it really, you have to go through there and analyze what they're saying because there's so much information. And this is an exciting topic, which is, sex and marriage. What's it all about? So let me get to the point. So what the Spirit Kathleen, who is kind of the spokesperson for this group of spirits, this is what they told Reverend G. Vallon about the role of sex in marriage. And what they say is what they present is that we all must combine 4 aspects of sex roles and characteristics. Now, when you hear the word 4 aspects, what do they mean by 4 aspects, right? There's male and female. This is what they say. This is very interesting. Now we turn to detail. Oh, hello, Rosalind. Now we turn to detail more especially and speak of that outcome of marriage, the human unit, male or female, as the case may be. He is born, you will know, of a 4-fold element. There is the male and female element of the sire, which means the male, and the female and male element of the dame. Oh, hello, Elisa. In the father, the dominant expression is that of masculinity. In the mother, that of femininity. By the incorporation of these 4 elements, or rather 4 aspects of one element, or more nearly still these 2 aspects and 2 other sub-aspects of one thing, in the one, the person of the offspring there is first multiplied and then unified once again, some of the variations which are the outer expressions of the inner principle of sex. So he begins to live his own life, this child of the eternities past, and to look forward to the eternities of the future. So you can see they really try to explain this, but they get in such deep so quick. So let's talk about this. So you could read this to state that we must all have a balance between feminine and masculine qualities, and that a woman possessing masculine characteristics expresses them differently than a man does, and vice versa. Hence, we must learn all 4 aspects of the 2-sided equation. A woman will have masculine, feminine characteristics, and how they interpret and how they use those is important to understand. And as a man, you have masculine and feminine characteristics, and how you express those and use those is, again, something we are on here, Earth, to learn. And as we travel forward in our quest to ascend the ladder of spirituality and goodness, we need to combine the outstanding qualities of each aspect, all 4 aspects. And there are other spiritualist writings which back this up, as well as reports from near-death experiences. Now, a woman named Yvonne had a near-death experience in which she felt she personally encountered Jesus. And I wrote about her in my book, The Spirit World Talks to Us, 12 accounts of near-death and other experiences. Now, if the spirit wasn't Jesus, then at least it was a high spirit that has been ascending for eons. And she was transported during her near-death experience to a heavenly location. And Yvonne, in the middle of a luminous fog, looked around, and suddenly from a distance, she said, "I saw something." And she had this whole YouTube interview. In fact, you can see more information on that in my book. And she described what she saw. She says, imagine a flame of fire. Instead of fire, it was energy. Imagine a face. And in her mind, she knew it was Jesus. She said, he engulfed me with his body that was made of energy. Yvonne felt what she had never felt before, pure love. She tells us that she thought what she thought as she first embraced the high spirit that she recognizes as Jesus. This is what she said. Here's some quotes from her. I knew it was Jesus. He engulfed me with his body that was made of energy. At that moment, I felt the love of a father and mother blend in one. It was not a he and not a she. It was one. I think on earth, love has been divided in a male type of love and a female type of love. Jesus has blended in both. Now, this is what is so interesting. This is why I've written 2 books on different near-death experiences, because they complement and they prove what Spiritism has been telling us, right? So we had a message in the I think it was 10s or 20s, depending on when Jiva Aung got this message about how, as you go higher and higher, you're supposed to learn about all the different 4 aspects of love. And here is Yvonne in a recent near-death experience said she felt that this is not a male love or female type. This is like everything, right? And what Yvonne identified in Jesus is what is in store for us as we ascend in the hierarchy of spirits, becoming more loving, caring, fraternal, and wise. We begin to combine the masculine and the feminine sides more completely. This is part of our reason for incarnating on earth. We must be trained in active and passive behavior, in bold action, and in quiet sympathy. This is tough, right? Imagine going through life and trying to balance all this and knowing which is the best method, which is the best way to be in all circumstances. And this is why the spirit realm, under the directions of Christ, has fashioned our planet to train us in both aspects of the male and female behavior and characteristics. And they use the differentiation of the sexes to not only serve as training for us in countless lives, but also to push civilization to a higher plane. And with this, to drive us together, to make us understand each other, this is why we have this passion, we have sex, right? And what we are told is, in one of the books by Andre Luis, psychographed by Chico Xavier, is the control center of sex is not located in the dense body, but in the sublime organization of the soul. And that was in the book In the Greater World. That's what, Andre Luis, who died and found himself in the lower zone. Of course, he was eventually rescued by spirit workers in the celestial city of No Solar and became a member of various groups to assist humans and spirits on earth. And he wrote this great series of books about his life in spirit world through, of course, Chico. His full name is Franciscos C. Xavier. And again, if you can find his books on the EDICI bookstore, just click on the picture of Allan Kardec and you will find his books. So I was intrigued by this passage about sex, right? If there's anything about us that seemed to be rooted in our dense, primitive, and often brutish bodies, it is lust, right? It is sex. But Andre Luis' mentor tells him and tells us what sex means in the higher spiritual region and how it molds us here on earth. This is what's great about Andre Luis' book, because he always asks these questions and then he has these, very wise spirits tell him, okay, this is why this is happening. This is what his mentor told him. Down on earth, men and women are distinguished according to specific organic features. As for us, in transit to higher spiritual regions, the remembrance of our earthly existence is still preponderant. We know, however, that in the higher regions, femininity and masculinity are characteristics of souls that are highly passive or openly active. So think about that. So what's he saying? He's saying that in the higher region, sex is more of an attitude, or more succinctly, an attribute. Attributes that we acquire throughout our many lives. He describes this process further. This is what he says. Consequently, we know that in the variations of our experiences, we gradually acquire divine qualities such as determination and tenderness, strength and humility, power and gentleness, intelligence and sentiment, initiative and intuition, wisdom and love, until we attain our supreme balance in God. So, what was he saying? So as we progress, we learn to balance the active and passive roles of our nature. Every spirit is unique and all will have different degrees, but all who ascend into purity will achieve some sort of balance. Andre Luis' mentor tells us that the human race started out like animals, where the male possessed the female, but given millennia of slow evolution, the combinations of woman mother and man father migrated to the concept of the tribe. The primitive shelter changed into the home, and the quest for wild game transformed into the farm. And from this, the spark of sex civilization arose. The wooden club of the caveman became the gift of flowers to his love. So we must all travel this road to perfect balance. And the mentor describes our journey. And so this is something I think we can all relate to. This is what he said. Sometimes humans takes years, centuries, and many lifetimes to go from one level to the next. Few individuals are able to keep themselves above the fray with the equilibrium that is required. Very few have crossed the territory of ownership without battling cruelty with the monsters of selfishness and jealousy to which they have completely surrendered. We've seen that all sorts of times, haven't we? I'll carry on with this quote. A small number travel the road of tenderness without shackling themselves for a long stretch to the many chains of exclusiveness. And sometimes only after millennia of excruciating, purifying trials can the soul reach the luminous zenith of sacrifice for its final deliverance en route to a new cycles of unification with the divinity. So where should we be? He's saying we should own no one. We direct no one. We merely love, cherish, and help one another. How many times have you seen these horrible things where you see, some guy obsessed with a woman and won't let her go, and she's probably right to try to leave him, and then he does something terrible because he wants to own her. And that's an immature spirit. Same thing, women will do the same thing for men. Sometimes men or women will kill one or the other because they won't let them go. Whereas we should know that, if someone wants to leave us or someone wants to be different, then love them, right? Love them. Let them be what they need to be. It's love is important. You don't own anyone. You don't tell people you have to do that or whatever. It's just it's love for that person, and you're brought together so you can look at the characteristics of that person and then look at yourself and go, what is that person? How's that person superior or something I should emulate, right? Like, for like me with my wife, how can I be more caring, right? Because sometimes I'm too I'm just too deliberate and sometimes I don't, I just give orders, right? Instead of kind of giving direction. And, there's a lot I can learn and there's other things other people can learn. So that is what they're trying to get us to do. So each one of us, we're learning to weigh our active and passive sides. And it's all depending on, in different circumstances, is understanding when one is better than the other, right? Because it's different circumstances and will give us where we need to be. Now, let's go even further back, right? So given how we all accept the need for two sexes to carry on the human race, our belief in the inevitability of a male and female form and function is absolute, but it is not. It was a conscious decision, one made for a purpose. So what I'm saying here is Jesus, who was the supervisor for the creation of the earth and the evolution of all of us here on earth, could have done different things. So what was Jiva Allen told? This is what the spirits told Jiva Allen. We speak first to you of marriage as a union of two personalities in creative faculty. The people take it as quite in the ordinary course of things that sex should be, and also that sex should be complete in the blend of male and female. But it was not of essential necessity that this should be. Humanity might have been hermaphrodites, but far away from the beginnings of this present eternity of matter. When the sons of God were evolving form in its ideal conception, they took counsel together and afterwards decreed that one of the laws which should guide their further work should be not so much as a division of the race in the two sexes, as you and earth philosophy have it, but rather that sex should be one of the new elements which should enter into the further evolution of being, when being should shortly enter into matter and so take form. But the form endowed personality with individuality, and so the element of personality by the evolution of concrete form issued in this complement of persons. But as from one element persons came, so sex is unity composed of two species. Man and woman form one sex, as flesh and body form and blood form one body. This is pretty complicated, right? So therefore, while the physical aspect of sex is part of our experience, the more subtle personality traits and the graduations of aggressive and passive behavior is all part of our training. And this is all part of making it easier for us to learn. So the Spirits book by Allan Kardec also said, so for us to learn this, in question 202, does a spirit, when existing in the spirit world, prefer to be incarnated as a man or a woman? And the answer was, that point in regard to which a spirit is indifferent, in which is always detected in view of the trials which he has to undergo in his new corporeal life. So further in the Spirits book, we are told that marriage is a union of two spirits. And in the Spirits book, there is no mention of male and female. So therefore, marriage is two spirits assisting each other to understand the different aspects and to be sympathetic to those differences, to help the other to learn from the other, right? So as one unit, they may both improve. And the point is reinforced by what the spirit Kathleen passed on to the Reverend G. Vallon. So we talked about the Spirits book back in the 1850s. Now we're back to another group of spirits talking to Reverend G. Vallon in the 20th century. This is what she says. Two great principles which are included in the unity of Godhead were made to appear as two separate things in order that those two principles might be studied in detail by those who were not competent to study them as one. But when the male considers the female, he is but getting a more clear understanding of a part of himself. And so when the female reasons on the male, for as they were not separate in the eternities of development, which went before this present eternity of matter and form, so that the two elements shall become one again in those eternities which shall come after. So what are they telling us? The spirit world, the high lords of our system, who are the messengers and implementers of the word of God, knew that for us to understand the duality of natures, we needed the problem broken down. It is simple heuristics, a plan to present the need to explore all aspects of our behavior in such a way that we live the solution throughout many lives. It is like tricking your children to play a game in which they are accumulating new knowledge, enjoying themselves and learning at the same time. Otherwise, they would have resisted. That's what we are here on earth. I'm a man, and you talk to other men and go, I don't understand women. Well, it's your job to understand women. Why are women the way they are? And how can you use that? Men I don't understand men. Well, it's the job. Women will start understanding men because they have to, right? Men and women both have to understand each other. Is forcing us to learn the different aspects of passive and aggressive male, masculine, and feminine behavior as it is demonstrated by persons of different sex. It is breaking down the problem for us to understand these things. This is what Spiritism brings you. This is so revealing, right? And then also when you think about it in the Spirits book, when they say, marriage is union between two spirits, and you can come back as male or female. So we come back as male or female. Usually what you hear is that you come back male most of the time or female most of the time, but then there's other ways that are not. And then that's why when you see, now marriages between a male and male or a female and female, they also have, one of them could have been a female before, wanted to become, and felt like they were a female now. That's why there's a lot of people who are confused, right? Because in their previous lives, they were probably of a different gender. And so it's all wonderful. It's all about learning, right? And they were put in that by the spirit world because, and a lot of times you'll read things about, this woman who treated men terribly, just horribly, then came back as a man so she would know what men were about, or vice versa. A man treated women terribly, but then would come back as a woman to understand what it is like, what it is to be a woman. This is how the spirit world works, right? They're always planning. They're always thinking, what do we need in this life to learn the lessons we need to learn? And it's very it's just amazing the tapestry of what we go through for the so we are exposed to the trials we are so we can learn. I know it's very difficult for a lot of people who are confused about these things, but it's something for them to think about. So think about this. The human race, if it wasn't for them deciding that we are not smart enough to figure out all this stuff, we could have started out as an asexual personality with no need to reproduce from a mixture of two parents. In our present intellectual and social level of maturity, we require a course in comprehending the many facets of our behavior. And our sojourn, as far as going from life after life, will result in newfound awareness. This is what was told. By this experience of the two in unity, the perfective human being ages hence in other worlds of onward press toward the state of being consummate. Men shall have come to the knowledge how it is possible in loving other and giving to other. By denying of self, he is loving himself the more, but the bountifully giving to himself by that same denying of self. We shall all eventually become what Yvonne saw during her near-death experiences, a glorious mixture of love and kindness. In fact, the two spirits who spoke with Reverend Yvonne in 1917 revealed the same aspect about Jesus as Yvonne saw in the 21st century. This is what they said. So of the blend of the two elements, spiritually as bodily, there is born a third who within himself unites these two elements in his one person. The Lord Jesus was the perfect son of humankind, and his nature, spiritually considered, is a blend of male and female virtues in duly equal parts. So there you have it. Our daily dramas, trying to understand our partners, is really all of a grand plan. A plan so perfect we don't even realize that we are in deep study while we try to figure out how to live with each other. Therefore, go forth unafraid. Learn the hard or the easy way of what your spouse desires, why they desire it, and what motivates their desires. Because the insights you gather will be used for your ascension up the spiritual ladder. So I hope that is very revealing, right? So everything, it's just, there's nothing wasted. The spirit world is this amazingly efficient. So, that's why we're in relationships. And then some people who don't have relationships, there's a reason for that. Maybe they're supposed to dive deeper into themselves. And part of being that is that we have to improve ourselves. One of the things I've done is I've written another book, How to Live, Inner Peace Through Spiritism. And that is taking a poem that was written by the spirit Andre Luis. And it was each line was saying, what more, what do you need to do to ascend? And I take each line of his poem and go through how the spirit world wants you to study, to learn, to change your character so you can improve yourself, right? This is why we're here on earth. We are on earth not to become rich, right? Not to become powerful, not to, conquer the world. We're on earth to do a couple things, right? We're on earth to improve ourselves. We are really, and this is said time and time again in many religions, right? Is we are here to remove the blemishes of our personality. Those things that did us really well as a primitive spirit need to be erased, right? Our uncontrollable anger, right? That's got to go, right? We have to learn to change that. Our being in tribal groups, right? And only like loving your immediate family. Although you've got to get away from that. You've got to start loving everyone like they're all souls on this journey. And this is really what Spiritism tells us. And part of this is what I want to go through next is that it's hard. It's hard. So like when I talk or I do articles, so many people say, you don't know what you're talking about, et cetera, right? Which is all fine. God love everybody. And another thing they told the Reverend Shiva is don't be afraid as you become spiritually more mature. You're going to be different. And don't be afraid to be different. Don't let society silence you because of their preconceptions. And as an example of this, a minister, and they didn't say what religion he was. He passed away, and he was in the book by Reverend G. Baldwin. And this, I go through this in book 3 of Spiritism. The spirit realm, he just passed away, and he was assigned a house on the second level of heaven. And this the wise spirit, the spirit realm, sent a woman to discuss why was he unable to speak? What he knew was the truth to people who needed help with communicating with loved ones who have passed, while he was in the physical life. And instead of assisting those in need, he guided them elsewhere. Why? Because he was afraid to be exposed to the scorn and ridicule from his colleagues. It's so true even today as it was in the beginning of the 20th century. People are afraid, you don't talk about religion, you don't talk about God. It's like, and I understand that. And, even I do the same. And I wait until it's like there's an invitation, until there's a question that someone asked direct, and I try to interpret it that way. But it's not easy. And therefore, it is easy to tell everyone to stand up for what you believe in, to not be afraid to speak the truth. But we all know it's really not easy, right? When others are all professing a certain belief, we become tentative in any differences in our thoughts. And I remember when I was in college, I was invited to a study. I was told to listen to a series of beeps and to tell the leader at the head of the table the number of beeps I heard, right? And there was a group around, about 4 or 5 people on the telephone, and I had a headphone like this. And in the headphone, I heard the beeps and kept track of the correct number. And after the first round, each of us were asked what the number of beeps we heard. And my answer was different from all the others. And I go like, this caused instant confusion on my part. I tried to go through the instructions I was given. I said, what was the definition of a beep, right? And in my mind, I was, and on the second round, again, I had a different answer. I was now worried about my hearing. I said, oh my God, am I hearing bad? And was the static sound supposed to be a beep too? Right? On the third round, I conformed to what others said. I had given up. Obviously, there was something wrong with my thinking or my hearing. After a few more rounds, we finished. Then I was told that all the other participants were told what to say. I was the only variable. The experiment was to determine the effect of group pressure. What I had heard was true, but I lacked the confidence and conviction to report the truth. I had failed. But I am extremely grateful for being allowed to learn a very valuable lesson. In fact, as I look back, I am certain the spirit realm guided me to that room and experiment so I could learn to have faith in what I knew and not to let others influence me. The embarrassment I felt caving into group pressure so easily was intense. I have never forgiven myself how disappointed I was. What a complete fool. So that moment made a lasting impression on me, right? No longer would I suffer changing my belief. If I had the facts to support it in face of social pressure from others, I would say it. Well, I can certainly say often, instead of speaking out, I remained silent, but I didn't change my thinking. And, a lot of times in order to keep my job, I'm sure everyone's gone through this, each time feeling small for doing so, I had this stay silent. On the other hand, in other circumstances, I have spoken out or refused to go along. Of course, that could explain my complete lack of advancement in my career, right? That's why I am not in the high levels of executives. So I am sympathetic to the poor soul who was confronted in heaven for what he did, or more rightly, what he did not do on earth. His case was discussed with the Reverend G. Baldwin, and they begin with a description of a house in the second sphere of heaven, where those who have recently passed over stay for a time to recuperate and determine their eventual place in the heavenly spheres. This is what was told Reverend G. Baldwin. One of our band not long ago went to this house and sought out a man who had come to such a forward state as this. On earth, he had been a minister of religion who had read somewhat of what you call psychic matters, and the possibilities of speaking one to other between us and you, as we do at this present. But he could not comment the thing in thorough, and was afraid to say out even so much as he in his own heart knew to be true and good. So he did what many of his fellows are doing. He put the matter aside. He could find other ways in which to help his fellow men, and this other matter might await the time when it was more and more widely understood and accepted of men. Then he would be one of the foremost to proclaim what he knew, and he would not shrink his duty in that time. So he was waiting, right? In other words, when the coast was clear, he would pop up his head and become part of the group. I once heard a wonderful explanation of how senior and executive management operates in large companies. I've seen this, right? I'm sure a lot of people have seen this. Each manager wishes to lead, to make him or herself notice as a performer. But on the other hand, they don't wish to stick out too far, because to be too different is not to be part of the group. Hence, their behavior was described as constantly swimming in the bait ball, right? Bait balls are like this group of fish all swirling around. And then predators, right? So you don't want to be too distant out of the bait ball, because a predator will come and pick you out and eat you. And therefore, you want to change direction with the rest of the fish and huddling together in relative safety, hoping some other fish close to the outer ring or completely outside will be eaten. And this is why one sees some of the dumbest ideas gain traction and even thrive in corporations and governments. The fish aren't thinking of the actual direction. They are merely trying to keep up with others so as not to expose themselves. And it is so true. So this man didn't want to reveal that we, the incarnates, are able to speak to the other side. He would have been outside the bait ball. He would have been different, right? If he did, he would expose him to derision and malicious gossip from his peers. Yeah, believe me, we've all been there. I've been there. I totally understand what he was thinking. And therefore, when members of his flock came to him inquiring about communicating with deceased loved ones, this is what we were told would occur. This is what was told to Reverend Juvalin. But when others came to him and asked him first whether it was possible to speak with their dear ones who had come over here, and second, whether it was God's will to do so. So he was like a priest or something in a religion, probably a Catholic or whatever. They don't say. So what he did is he put them in mind of their Christian belief in the saintly communion, but urged them that they be patient until the church should have tested and sifted and should have issued guidance for those who were of the fold. And while he waited, lo, his time on earth was fulfilled, and he was carried over into this home, this is what they're saying, whether he might rest a while and come to some decision on what attitude he assumed on the diverse matters of his calling and of the use he made of his opportunities. So, what are they telling us? People came to this man of the church because they had seen evidence and clues about the other side. Okay, this is what's so great, about now, right? Before the internet made possible the gathering of near-death experiences from around the world, before the power of the Catholic Church has diminished to the point where people could freely talk about psychic phenomena, there was still an acknowledgement amongst the masses that a life beyond death existed and that loved ones still lived in another dimension. People talked, they either knew or had witnessed themselves, a feeling, a sense, an intuition of a future event, or an actual near-death or other experience with the spirit realm. The Catholic Church's position, as well as others, are one that one can't communicate with the other side, didn't match their own understanding. So hence, the spirit world sent an emissary to speak to the newly departed man of the church. She, the spirits called her Naani, sought out his resting place in sphere 2. She found him in a peaceful garden surrounded by plants and flowers of indescribable lights and colors. So this is what they said happened. She went to him and stood before him, and he bowed and would have passed on. But she spoke to him and said, "My friend, it was to you I was sent to speak to you." And he replied, "Well, who sent you to me?" And she said, "The angel who has to answer to our master for your life work while in the earth sphere." And he asked her, "Why should you have to answer for me? Surely everyone must answer for his own life and work. Isn't that so?" And she said, "Yes, that is surely so. Yet to our sorrow, we here know that is not the whole of the matter. For naught you do or leave undone ends with yourself alone. He who had you in charge made effort time and time again for your welfare, and in part succeeded, but not in whole. And now the earth period has been closed to you. He has to sum up your life and answer for his charge of you, to his joy and also to his sorrow." Let me stop there for a second. Again, what is that telling us? We're not here on earth alone. Our spirit, our guardian angel, our spirit mentors, or they're looking at us saying, "Oh, I hope this person passes this test." And they'll tell us things like, Listen to your conscience. This is the right thing to do. What have I said over and over again in all my talks? It's like the hardest thing we're here on earth is to learn to not rationalize away our conscience, right? Is not to say, I know it's not right, but everyone else is doing, or things I've done and everyone else has done. No, but this is, I'll be better next time, right? And then we, and as you've seen in many near-death experiences, we have to come up and answer for these things. Like, why did you make that decision? Now, and as you read in your death experiences, these things when you go over life, none of them are like, oh, you idiot. It's like, just think about this, get better, right? Because we're immortal. We have plenty of lives to fix this, but this is what we have to think about, right? What's important? And this is telling you, this is what's so wonderful about these messages and communications with spirit world, because you read these things and you just see so many things in it. So let me finish off. So what she said to Nayani, he said, he charged you to his joy and to sorrow. So that priest or whatever he was, reverend, had someone in charge, helping him. And probably he was going up to his superior and say, okay, what do you think of this person? Why do you think he did what he did? Right. So then he answers her, says, this seems hardly fair to my mind. It is not my idea of justice, and that another should suffer for one's failure. Then Nayani said, and yet that is what you taught the people yonder. It was your understanding of the doings at Calvary that you handed on to them. Not all you said of it was true, and yet it was true in part, for we do not share joy on behalf of another's joy. And do we not share joy on another's behalf of joy? And share we are not also in his sorrowing. This your angel does for you even now. He both joys and sorrows over you. And he said, oh, well, explain this. I don't understand. This is what she told him. He joys that you did good work in charity, for your heart was much bathed in love for God and man. He sorrowed for you, and that you were not content to do what you taught was done for you on Calvary. For you were not willing to become scorned for men, to be withered with their disapproval. For you valued the praise of men more than God's praise, and hoped to be able one day to buy more cheaply your reward for having spread light upon the darkness, when that darkness should begin to pass from night into the twilight of the dawning day. But you did not see in your weakness and lack of valiant purpose and of strength to suffer shame and coldness, that the time for which you waited was the time when your help would be most needful, and the fight all but won by others of more stalwart mettle, while you stood with the onlookers and viewed the fight from a fair vantage ground, while those others fought and gave and took blows good and strong, and fell forward in the battle when they would not surrender their cause to those who opposed them. And, when I read that, how I feel for that poor man, doing what he thought he could while weighing the pros and cons of his actions, afraid of the consequences of fighting a large and brutal organization. I have faced the same dilemmas and have been gutless time and time again. I remember back in high school walking home with some friends, passing two other young high school boys. When they attacked us, I ran, leaving my friends behind. What a spineless coward. I vowed never to do that again. But of course, as I got older, I did, right? In management, I allowed people to be fired or given bad reviews just because a certain percentage of employees had to be found wanting. I performed such despicable acts because I selfishly desired to keep my position, and much worse, I wanted to demonstrate my usefulness in carrying out orders. Unlike the man of the cloth, he at least engaged in charity and good works, while I only wished to make money. So this is, we can all see, I just feel so, I understand that person completely, because I was, he's better than I was. It's just so interesting. And to know that really is just, for me wanting to, and I probably learned that as I went higher and higher in my career, and I had to be more cruel to more people and then do whatever the very senior executives wanted. I finally decided I just got sick. I can remember one day I was on my bed, writhing in pain, and I knew I had to take or whatever that, some sort of tranquilizer, because I just was so stressed out. And finally, I just changed. I said, no, I don't want to be in charge of anybody anymore. look, I have to work for a corporation. I have to earn money, but I can't do that to people. What was asked of me, I can't lie and I can't cheat people. And but it just was horrible. And I apologize to anyone I ever stomped on. So let me go more about what he said. So upon hearing what she just said, this is what he asked. He goes, but why all this? But what is your reason for coming to see me? And then Naini said, because he sent me, because he would that he almost might come to you, but he's not able until you have a mind more clear of purpose, and until you have mastered to acknowledge the various elements which made up your earth life in their true values and appraisement. Then he said, I see, partly at least. Thank you. I've been in the cloud all this time. I came here away from others to try to understand it all better. You have said some pretty straight things to me. Perhaps you'll add to the service by telling me how I am to begin. So this is what Naini told him. That is my mission here and now. It is the one thing with which I was charged. I was to probe your mind, to make you look inward upon yourself. And if you showed any will to progress, I was to give you a message. This will you have now shown, not very heartily, however. And this is my message from your angel guide, who awaits you to lead you on when you have trained yourself a little more. You're requested to take up your quarters in the home, which I will show you, in the first sphere. So it's one lower sphere than where he was. From there you will, from time to time, visit the earth plane and help those there in their communion with their friends here in the spheres of light, and also to aid them in speaking comfort and encouragement to those who are in the darker spheres, that they may progress into the light and peace of his presence. There are even those among you to whom you have ministered, several who are trying to do good work for those in anguish, and also to give and to get gladness by their speaking with your loved ones here. They sought your guidance in this matter, and you had no courage to give it to them. Go and help them now, and when you are able to make known to them your personality, unsay what you then said, or say what you lacked courage to tell them. In this you shall have some shame, but they will have much joy and will deal very kindly with you. For they have scented already the fragrance of love from realms higher and brighter than this, in which you have been resting. But the choice is still for you, go or not go, as your heart inclined you. So Naini left him pondering on his decision, whether to travel to lower sphere and facilitate communication between the earthly and heavenly planes, or to remain in his home in the second sphere. Whatever his decision, this is so important to us here on earth. It is his alone. Free will is one of the divine laws. We are not forced to become better. We are presented opportunities in which we may learn. In the spirit world, for those in one of the heavenly spheres, we are given options and choices. We move up or down at our determination. On earth, we encountered episodes that have been predetermined to allow us to learn what we have lacked in the previous life. Again, we have the choice to either absorb the lesson or completely ignore it. While in the lower zone and the dark abyss, also called purgatory, those spirits are a place and a location where they are daily reminded of who they are and what they believe, and are given the exact environment they so desired while on earth. Although now they're in the middle of it, they shall have second thoughts and one day emerge. In our physical life, we are given challenges, just like the man who was given the chance to spread his knowledge, but declined the sublime summons because it was too risky. We too, all of us, here on earth and physical bodies, we face difficult choices. Our decision will not only affect our life here on earth, but our future path in the spirit world. Remember, for any sacrifice you must make on earth in the pursuit of doing good, we shall be rewarded 100-fold when we return back home after shedding our physical bodies. Now, so what have we learned in this whole section that I'm talking about in book 3? And this is one of the first sections of book 3, is how we are guided by spirits, right? The other two I'll talk in next weekend and next weeks to come, with spirits assistance, how we're assisted by spirits, and the future of earth, which will be really exciting. So what's the bottom line here? So we as humans believe ourselves to be on top of the food chain, right? We're masters of the planet. It only appears to be this way. In reality, we are immature souls who are in a tightly controlled classroom with 24 hours a day monitoring. We should all thank God for this. The human form as it expressed on this planet Earth was specifically tailored to the conditions that exist on this little orb, the third from the sun. We have been presented with an encasement that was designed to further our education. It allows our spirit intelligence to be filtered and gated, to only transmit a limited amount of data back and forth via the paraspirit to our organic brain. The human body acts as a governor on our spirit personality to set us up to gain the maximum knowledge from our experiences assigned to us on Earth. Living for a short amount of time in a human body is a privilege, one that shouldn't be taken lightly. The gift of reincarnation provides us with a vehicle to remove what is wrong and to add what is good to our spirit personalities. Our whole existence is that task, and we are reborn time and time again, and we're born in different bodies, male, female, different races, different classes, poor, rich, middle class, military, doctors, scientists, ditch diggers. We're given all these different experiences so we can understand all sort, how to act in all sorts of circumstances. In Access, we're told, even in the Spirits book, is what's the hardest trial people have, right? To be rich, because you have so much freedom to do bad, right? To be mean to people, to get what you want, to be unreasonable, and everyone puts up with it. It's one of the hardest trials. So have sympathy for those people. So this is, so living for a small amount of time in a human body is a privilege, and it shouldn't be taken lightly. That's why we need to take care of our body, right? Just like when you're in school, you're given books and you put it like a book cover on and say, don't ruin that book, right? That's your responsibility. Our bodies are our responsibilities. That's why when they talk about Andre Luis, when he passed away and he went in the umbrella, and they said, how come I was in the umbrella? He goes, well, and why he was in the umbrella, which is kind of apart from the crust of the earth up to the level of heaven. People kept calling him suicide. He goes, I'm not suicide. Well, what they call people who don't take care of their bodies, too much alcohol, drug overdoses, etc., is you're an unconscious suicide. That means you died before your time because you didn't take care of your body. That's why it's so sad you see these people die of overdoses and everything, because, they should have been on Earth to finish their classes, right? To finish their trials on Earth. Now they have to go back and do some more, right? It's like you went through all of like 10th grade or 11th grade, and then all of a sudden, you missed the second half of it. You just lost a whole year, you lost a whole life. So our whole existence is that task of learning. We are on Earth to learn, to improve, to be educated, to love. That's the reason you are on Earth. And yes, our human instincts have been modified over the millennia. And yes, we are born with certain urges. And yes, the DNA from our parents and their parents affect our bodies and mind. But all of this is known and planned by the spirit world. Our primitive impulses, which helped us survive during the dawn of mankind, are now those very desires we are challenged to learn to either modify or ignore. One may regret those yearnings which boil up and invade our thoughts, but it's all part of the process of training ourselves to reject that which one runs counter to our conscience, that set of universal laws embedded in our brain by the divine presence. As we mature, we shall learn to follow the signs and signals given to us by our conscience and from spirits who are here for our benefit. We shall place deep into our heart the need to do what is right and honest, given what options we may be able to choose in any type of circumstances. The spirit world doesn't expect us to give away all of our possessions and live life as a wandering monk, only that we constantly attempt to be on the side of good, to try and maneuver around the obstacles that face us, to select the path that harms the least people, does the most good, and follows our inner voice of purity. And I talk a lot about this, of how can we ascend? What do we need to study? What do we need to improve? How should we respond to certain circumstances? It's how to live inner peace through spiritism. Believe me, when you start exploring spiritism, your stress levels just go, because you understand why you're here. I had, when I was in a higher position, I had headaches, I had stress, Many people consider me a complete failure in my career now. Well, that's okay, but I'm happy. I'm happy because I know I'm doing the best I can. Well, I probably should do better in my work, but I'm doing as well as I can. I'm trying not to harm people. I'm trying to do good. I fail all the time, but I understand that when things happen, they're all here for a learning experience. So again, I ask everyone, please share this video. Share my site, nwspiritism.com. Again, on my site, nwspiritism.com, down below the picture of Allan Kardec, there's also, you can go on to my YouTube channel. I copy our Facebook live programming and I put that on the YouTube channel. And I also have many different videos, shorter videos on Spiritism. I call it Spiritism Explored and Explained, the different levels of planets, etc. Share that with your friends. Show them what Spiritism can tell them, right? Spiritism is here to reveal the world to you, right? And I understand many, religions many are wonderful, caring, kind, and many good, wonderful people in there. But what Spiritism brings is that it tells you more about why you're here. It reveals the processes, the organizations, the reasons, what heaven is like, what you go through is heaven. And you've heard what the spirits told that priest, you didn't do everything you should have. It's giving you real mentorship. It's giving you real good advice. So I want to bless everybody. Thank you so much for putting up with me today. And again, it was wonderful to talk to you, and I just hope everyone is happy. Please share this video. Tell everybody about Kardec Radio Facebook page. Tell everybody in July there's coming up a youth event in the Virginia, Washington, D.C. area. Find your Spiritist center. I had one person ask me a Spiritist center in, I think, Iowa, and I said, I don't see any of them. Start your own, right? And she wrote to me, and I'm going to send her some books, right, that I have. So help other people around you, and it's a wonderful feeling. And I just want to say, God bless everybody. Now I'll put the end credits on in one moment. Here we go.
I'd like to thank everyone
Thanks.
for listening to our program on Kardec Radio, and to point you in the direction to find more information about the spirit world around us. You can visit my blog at www.nwspiritism.com. Again, that is www.nw as in Northwest Spiritism.com. And if you are ever in the Northwest, I certainly would welcome to have you come to our meeting on Bainbridge Island near Seattle in the state of Washington. Many blessings to all of you, and please continue to explore Spiritism and the spirit world around us.